If I schedule all of my videos correctly, this video is going to come live to you on December 30th, which is technically the end of the year, and I feel like the end of the year book tag would be the perfect video for today's video. So I'm going to answer this book tag questions that I believe originally created by Sidney. I will leave her original video down below. I think she made this video like a couple years ago, and everyone who has uploaded an end of the year book tag video has been quoting these questions that Sidney created, so I'm going to do the same. Anyways, let's go ahead and get started with the very first question, and it is most disappointing book of the year. I love how straightforward this question is, and I have to pick The Pumpkin Spice Cafe by Lori Gilmore for this question. I know that I have watched people talk about this book and the book series in general, and most people don't really read this book for the plot or even the writing. Sometimes they're just reading this for the vibe, because all of the books in this book series is basically set at different seasons. For example, this one, as you can tell, is set in the fall. There is one for the holiday season, there is one for summer and spring. I don't think this book is bad. Like, the writing style is okay. It's easy to understand, easy to follow, and easy for me to get into the book. Sometimes like it takes me a few chapters to really get into the characters in the book, the setting and all of that, but it was pretty easy for me, at least, to get into this book. The thing that is most disappointing for me about this book is the main character's attraction and relationship. I think throughout the book, I feel like the FMC in this book opened up way more to the MMC. Like, I feel like she actually tells him what she's struggling with, like her past experience with her job and all of that. But I feel like our FMC learned about his past experience from his friends around her, and I don't remember him really opening up to her about his past. The next question is, what was an underdog book of this year? I think I have two. These two books are actually the debut novel of these authors, and I hope that you'll be able to pick it up next year, because these books are pretty amazing, and I don't think a lot of people actually are talking about this book that much, which I feel like they should. Anyways, the first book is Julie Chen is Dead by Lian Zhang. I have heard about the premise of this book, I feel like way before the book was published. I think this one was published, I want to say, in April. This is definitely something out of my comfort zone. This book is, I think, classified as thriller, mystery, as well as horror, but it's not that bad. As someone who doesn't really read horror at all, it was still okay for me. Like, I can still read through it and not feel creeped out or scared. But this book is very unhinged. It's basically about twin sisters. One of the sisters died, and the other twin sister basically take her place, and things go crazy from there. But I would highly recommend you add this book into your TBR next year. I cannot wait until Lian Zhang comes out with another book or her next book. I'm hoping it's in the same genre. I need to actually do a little bit more research to see if she actually is working on something new for next year. And the next underdog book that I feel like people should also pick up is this contemporary romance by Cynthia Timothy. It's called Salty Spice and a Little Bit Nice. This book is, again, also super cute. I feel like if you are Asian American who grew up here with immigrant like family members or parents, you definitely would relate so much with our main female character. I mainly got the e-arc for this book in the beginning of 2025 because I recognized that the author's name is very typical like Chinese Indonesian name, and I was right. She is Chinese Indonesian and she is based in Australia. Whenever I posted about this book and I tagged the author, I always put in my caption that I cannot wait for her next book, and she is coming out with a new book next year. I think it's going to be published in May. I will leave the cover of the new book right here. This one is about our FMC who has been growing up under her mom's really tight reign. She wants to break off of the family business. Every time she find a new job, her mom would somehow find a way to kind of like ruin it for her. So she decided to move basically across the US and really not telling anyone about where she is. When she moved to the West Coast, I believe she moved to somewhere in either Oregon or Washington State, and her brother's best friend actually lived there. And I guess her brother asked him to help her out because she's gonna be by herself on her own for the first time. And that is how the story unfolds in this book. Anyways, check out this book, check out that new book. Okay, next question. Okay, what was an overhyped book that you read? I'm gonna talk about one book, and I can already feel that you would probably give me an eye roll, but Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. I feel like this book was way overhyped this year, I guess, in 2025. Everybody wants to read this book, and I feel like a lot of people said that this is their least favorite book of Emily Henry. They thought the story about, what is her name? Margaret was kind of boring, and there's not enough romance between Alice and, what is his name? Hayden. But I don't know why, after I read this book, I thought the opposite. I thought Margaret's story about her past lives were really interesting. Although there are so many like characters in her family that I feel like I need to take out a pen and paper to just scribble down all of Margaret's family members' names. And I think Alice and Hayden's like connection is just really lovely in my opinion. Like, I think the romance was there. I love how Hayden is just kind of hesitating starting anything with Alice because they're competing for this job. Obviously at the end one of them is gonna get it, and he doesn't want it to be awkward between the two of them if they started something more than just like a friendship. I think it is one of my favorite books of Emily Henry in my opinion. I know it is overhyped. I know people are kind of mad that this actually win another Goodreads Choice Award, but it was a good book in my opinion. And I actually got this book for $1 at my local library. I feel like somebody just really hated this book or something, and they donated it to the library like about maybe a week or two after this book was published. So I had to snatch it because $1 for a new release book, and this is also the Barnes & Noble special edition. So next question is your favorite book couples of the year. I do have two. One of them is Michelle and Cliff from If It Makes You Happy by Julie Olivia. I wasn't going to read this book because this book is almost 500 pages long, which is insane for a contemporary romance book. But I get it that this is just a very slow burn romance, and I do enjoy the vibe of this book. This book has the fall vibe that I needed. The couples are just so cute because they started as friends first. The daughter's characters, because he has two daughters, just add some type of like elements that are good, I feel like, for the plot of the story. And all in all, this is a good book. I feel like this book is a little bit overhyped as well, but I get why. And I feel like if you are an older millennial, like you actually grew up in the 90s, like you were born maybe early 80s and you grew up in the 90s, this book would be for you. I could kind of relate to some of them, but I couldn't really relate to Michelle. I probably relate more to the youngest daughter because this book took place in 1997 and I was 7 when this technically happened. I just also love the friendship to lover trope, and they really were friends first. And I just love how the grumpy one is actually the girl, and then the guy is definitely sunshine. He is very flirtatious. I think his love language is physical touch because he always find ways to touch her shoulder or like to pet her or whatever. Like, it was just really cute. And I also want to just quickly talk about the other couple that I read recently, and it is Kai and Esme from The Bright Test by Helen Hong. This book is also really cute. I've talked about this before, but Helen Hong's writing about the emotional connection between the two main characters are just so smart. Like, she doesn't really write the connection of the two characters in conversation form. It was more in like their inner thoughts, the actions that they do in front of each other and stuff. So it was just brilliant. If you have not read any of her books, you should definitely pick it up. I think she only has 3 books out right now. I'm hoping that she will go back to writing sometime in the future because I love her writing so much. This one is the second book from a book series, but I know that sometimes the second book is not as great as the first book, but I think this book I like way better than the first one. But this one is about Kai, who I think is autistic, and he just thinks that he's defective because he cannot really show or even say his emotion. I guess his mom is just really sick of him being on his own, never really having a girlfriend. So his mom went back to Vietnam to get him a bride, basically, and she did just that because Esme is the one that his mom chose, and Esme basically lived with Kai, trying to seduce him, but she's also trying to change her life. She is Hapa, basically. She is half white, half Vietnamese, and all her time growing up, she just felt like she doesn't belong anywhere, and she just want to change her life by hopefully being able to bring her family to America when she can. The relationship between Kai and Esme are just really cute. Like I said, they started as strangers, but their emotional connection, it's just on a different level. Read it and let me know what you thought about this book and about this author, because she's amazing, very brilliant, and I wish she has more books in her backlog. The next question is your favorite main characters of the year. So at first, I actually put Finley and Pharaoh from Finley Donovan is Killing It as my favorite main characters. I feel like Finley is technically the only main character in this book, but Pharaoh is a close second. They are kind of like a duo, I guess. If you don't know what this book is all about, this is about Finley, who is a single mom of two. She just recently got a divorce. She actually worked as a murder mystery writer, and one day she went out for lunch with, I believe, her literary agent, trying to brainstorm what kind of like plot for her next mystery book. And I guess somebody overheard their conversation at lunch, thinking that Finley is a contract killer, and basically slip her a paper with a phone number, a name, like a target, and how much she will get paid if Finley is able to off this man, I guess. It was just a very interesting story, and I devoured this book within a day. The other main characters that I love is Ali and Ethan from Summer Romance. This book is one of my favorite books of 2025 because the FMC actually is someone in her 30s. She has been married, divorced, and also have kids. She's trying to basically rebuilding her life after divorce. And for some reason, I just relate so much with this type of character because it feels like I'm reading about a story of someone I know. Like, I feel like I'm the best friend in this story. Ali and Ethan's relationship, it's just very interesting. I don't really want to tell you how they know each other, but just read the book and then you know. And I guess I understand why Ali was kind of hesitant to start anything with Ethan, and also because Ethan doesn't really live in this town that Ali is living right now, so she decided to just have kind of like a summer romance, a summer fling with Ethan. But turns out that he is just so cute, and I guess I can say this, but he is younger than her, and usually I don't really like reverse age gap. I don't think their age gap is too big, but I don't know, it just works when the MMC, I guess, is more mature and just know how to take care of someone else. I just really love their banter, their connection, and their conversation and all of that. Also, his relationship with her kids are also cute. So I love it. I love it. I feel like if you haven't got a chance to read any Annabelle Monaghan's books, I should tell you that you should. And I think I would start with Summer Romance because this is just a cute book. Okay, so the next question is your favorite secondary characters of the year. And I think my favorite secondary characters are all of the characters from My Grandmother Asked Me to Tell You She's Sorry by Frederick Backman. I feel like this book doesn't really get talked a lot recently. I don't know if it has in the past when this book first published, but this book is so cute, and I feel like if you want a heartfelt story about a little girl who just lost her grandma, this would be it. It's not really sad. Maybe it's sad at times, but basically this book is about Elsa, who is 7, and her best friend is her grandma. But in the beginning of the book, we learn that her grandma has cancer, and unfortunately passed away in the beginning. But Elsa found letters from her grandma, and Elsa is being tasked by her grandma to deliver these other letters for other people to tell these people that her grandma is sorry. And basically you learn about all of these characters. They all live in the same kind of like apartment building, I think, as Elsa and her family. Her grandma also used to live in this apartment building, and basically she kind of had to go around getting to know the people in this apartment building, basically her neighbors. But there are definitely very, very interesting characters. In the beginning you kind of like despise these characters because they're adults and they're just kind of mean, and I feel like annoying. If I were to live with these people in the same building, I would complain about them a lot. Throughout the book you learn why they are the way they are and what is the connection between these people and this fairy tale that Elsa's grandma used to tell her when she was still living. And it was just a very, very cute and heartfelt story. Like I said, I would highly recommend this book if you are looking into that heartwarming story. I must tell you though, in the beginning it's kind of hard to get into just because there are just so many characters that you kind of have to learn. But the way that you learn it is also from the fairy tale point of view, if that makes sense. Give it a try, see if you like it, and if you feel like you want at the end of this book, I say keep going because it gets better. So the next question is going to be new favorite author you discovered this year, and I do have two. The first one is Ada Easton. I read her book called The Kiss Countdown, I believe. It's about an event planner and a very handsome astronaut. I think this is set in Houston, Texas, I believe. I think she had only 2 or 3 books out, and I haven't really picked up the second book in that kind of like interconnected universe. She also has a Christmas holiday romance book that came out this year, but I don't think I'm gonna be able to pick it up before Christmas is over, so I might pick it up for next year. But she is my new comfort author, and I cannot wait to read more of her books. The second new author that I discovered this year is Cynthia Timothy. Like I said, I love her writing style. I love her debut novel. Cannot wait to read her second novel next spring. Next question, what is the happiest book you read this year? And I have to say that that book is XOXO by XEO. I feel like there's nothing sad about this book, and all I feel when I read this book is just happiness, and just like I always say, like, oh my gosh, this book is so cute. It's so swoony. If you like Korean pop, Korean drama, just like that whole world of Korean entertainment, I think you would like this book. This one is about Jenny, who is Korean American. She is a, I believe, cellist. She learned that her grandma who lived in Korea is sick, and her mom plans to fly over to Korea and plan to stay with the grandma for a few months. And Jenny obviously doesn't want to stay in America on her own, so she decided to somehow transfer all of the credits that she has in high school now in America to like an academy in Korea. And she didn't know that this academy basically is a boarding school that enrolled students who are training to become a K-pop idol. And the story goes from there. She also met this mysterious guy in Koreatown in LA. She didn't know that that guy was actually someone popular in Korea. And when she moved to Korea to go to this boarding school, she saw him in the school. This book just makes me happy to think about it. I probably will read the second book hopefully sometime soon. Next question is the most frustrating book you read this year. This book, Love's a Witch by Tricia O'Malley. I feel like the most frustrating thing about this book is that the two characters' attraction is purely physical at first, and then after they make out at like his library, that's when they start sharing about each other's lives. I mean, they technically know each other from when they were like a teenager or something, and then she moved away because she is a witch and she is cursed, or her family is cursed. But he basically noticed her when they were younger and kind of had a crush on her, but never really said anything. Now that they're adults and they meet again, they kind of hated each other in the beginning, but then a few chapters in, they start making out at his house. Anyways, it was just kind of frustrating. The story plot itself, it's pretty interesting because there is some type of mystery in this book. This book is technically about 3 sisters, and there's gonna be a second and a third book, so I don't know. I feel like I might read the second book just because I'm curious, so we'll see. But yeah, this book is just kind of frustrating for me. What is the longest book you read this year is gonna be the next question. And when I look at the pages I read from each of the books that I read in 2025, that book was Burn Bright by Krista and Becca Ritchie. That book is the first book in the Cobalt Empire, which is part of the Addicted Calloway Sister series. I don't have the physical book because I was reading the book as e-arc, and honestly, I did not know that the book is that long. Since I don't have the physical book, I only have the digital copy. I feel like I was reading that book for like weeks upon weeks, and I didn't realize it was like about, I want to say 700 pages long. There are just some backstory of the characters that I don't get because I didn't read the earlier books in this Addicted Calloway Sisters universe. So I feel like if you are an avid reader of KBR books, Burn Bright is gonna be probably something that you are super excited about, but not to me. Like, I still like the book, I like the story, but I feel like I was missing something from the previous books because the characters in this book, like the side characters, were previously main characters on the older books. So I think I will like it better when I read the original series, which I'm trying to do next year, and then I'm gonna continue on with the second book in the Cobalt Empire series. Okay, so the next question is, what is the shortest book you read this year? And I believe the shortest book is The Second Chance Convenience Store by Kim Ho-yeon. I think that's how you say his last name. This book, it was given to me by Harper Perennial, and it is just really, really thin. I think it has less than 250 pages. 196 pages. I feel like when I was reading the book, I imagined this as a K-drama, and I feel like if they need a slice of life drama to create, this should be the drama that they based it on, because it was just a very heartwarming and heartfelt story. This is about Dokgo, who basically was homeless in the beginning of the book, and he doesn't really remember what happened to him before being homeless at Seoul Station. In the beginning of the book, he basically was trying to give back a wallet to this woman called Mrs. Yom. Long story short, Mrs. Yom needed someone to work the graveyard shift for the convenience store that she owned, and she decided to hire Dokgo. And from there, we learn a lot of stories about his interaction with the other workers of the convenience store, as well as the customers from the neighborhood. I would highly recommend this book if you are looking for that heartwarming slice of life type of like book that reminds you of that like cute Korean drama. The next question is your favorite covers of the year, and I don't know why, but every time I kind of get similar question, I always go to this one, which is Natalie Tan's Book of Luck and Fortune by Roselle Lim. She has two other books with similar cover, and I feel like the characters are kind of connected because I think the second book's main character's aunt is mentioned in this book, but I don't know why. This cover is just so pretty in my opinion. I also love the contrast between blue and the pink on the covers and the spine, and I just love it. The next question is a book you haven't stopped thinking about, and I gotta give it to Aftertaste by Daria Lavelle. This is, I want to say, an urban fantasy book, and it's about a man who can actually taste something at the back of his throat, and if he make that taste, whether it's like a drink or a meal, he can actually see the spirit that gives him that taste, and he can connect that spirit to that spirit's like living relative. That is kind of like his business, I guess, or he's trying to make that as a business. In the background, there's just kind of things that he doesn't really understand that might kind of mess up the whole living and dead world and stuff like that, and it just has a very interesting plot twist, and the ending was also unexpected. I also love the romance subplot in this book, and I feel like I learned something new about death in general from this book. I didn't know if this is actually a real life concept, but basically there's this character in the book where she has been in the limbo between life and death multiple times, and there are ways to do it, and it was just kind of interesting to learn. And honestly, I'm still thinking about it. I'm still thinking about the ending. But anyways, read it if you're curious. I highly recommend this book as well. The next question is the cringiest read of the year, and I gotta give it back to Love's a Witch by Tricia O'Malley. I don't know why, but I feel like when I think about the answer to this question, my head comes back to this. Like, honestly, it's not a bad book. I just, like I said, I don't feel the connection between the two characters, similar to the Pumpkin Spice Cafe. I don't know. Let me know if you read this book, if you think it's kind of cringy as well. The next question is unpopular book you loved, and I gotta give it to My Grandmother Asked Me to Tell You She's Sorry by Frederick Backman. Like I said, I don't really think I've heard people talk about this book this past year. Maybe it was popular when it was first published, but I think this book should be more popular. It has that similar feel with other Frederick Backman's books that people have talked about, but yeah, I feel like it's because maybe it's older or something, so people don't talk about it recently, but I highly recommend this book. So the next question is lowest rated on Goodreads and highest rated, and do you agree? I think this means look at the books that you read in 2025 and see on Goodreads which one is the highest rated and the lowest. So the highest is actually Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt. I feel like I do agree with the rating of this book. This book is actually pretty good. It has a very touching story. If you've never heard of this book before, it's about Tova, who is technically retired, but she decided to go back to work as a cleaning lady, I guess, at this aquarium. She had her husband who just passed away recently, but the tragic thing is that her son was missing when he was just 18 years old. Nobody really knows where her son went, but it was concluded that he actually drowned when he was out and about in the ocean. It also has other characters around Tova, because Tova is, like I said, retired, so she is in this book club in this small town who likes to kind of read books and also gossip. But it also talks about retirement, like what are you gonna do when you retire? Do you have anyone to kind of help take care of you, or do you have to live in a home and have other people that is not your family to take care of you and stuff? So it kind of makes me think about what I would do when I retire. Hopefully it's not gonna be for a long time, but I don't know, I just kind of like opened my eyes to some other things that I don't really talk about before. The lowest book that I read this year was Hex Education by Maureen Kilmer. It was rated 3.27, and I think I kind of agree. It's not the best book, but it's not the worst book either. It was, I guess, kind of interesting, especially the premise. It's about 3 college students who accidentally became a coven when they were trying out this spell one night when they were in college, but then they also ended up burning the dorm building down. And ever since that night, they never really talk to each other anymore. They never really, you know, do anything with like their magic and stuff until I think 20 years later, when the town and also the university want to do kind of like a memorial or like a day to remember the fire and stuff. That's when they see each other again. And then we learn from the main character, Sarah. She felt like her magic just wants to get out from her body ever since they kind of get together again physically. So the story goes from there. It has an interesting enough premise that I decided to pick it up. So the next question is favorite book quotes of the year. I actually have a few, so I'm going to look it up real quick. Alright, so I have one quote from Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan. And it says, and I think I'm most grateful for time, which doesn't always heal all wounds, but teaches us how to be happy again, even with our scars. The next couple ones are actually from Catherine Sanders' books. This one is from the Rom-Commers. Because the bad thing you're worried about is never the bad thing that happens. Next is from The Bodyguard by Catherine Center. It says, to this day, Connie swears that death, the threat of it, the promise of it, the looming guarantee of it, even if you're well, has its upsides. It helps you remember to be alive, if nothing else. It helps you stop wasting time. That's my favorite quotes from the books that I read this year. I feel like next year I'm gonna try my best to actually either take a photo or like actually type it out on my Notion whenever I read something from a book that I want to highlight. I kind of annotate my books earlier in the year, but I don't really do it as much after, but maybe I will do more. next year, who knows. The next question is book with the most unique concept you read this year, and I've already kind of talked about this book earlier, but it is Aftertaste by Daria Lavelle. Read the premise of this book and I feel like you would also think that this book is interesting. Let me know in the comment below if you have heard about this book or if you read the book, because like I said, until this day I still think about the ending of the book. I still think about how clever and brilliant the whole plot of this book is. And honestly, I cannot wait until Daria Lavelle also write another book. I'm not really sure if she has announced anything for the future project, but this book I think is something that I feel like have a very unique concept. Last but not least, the book you read this year that you would reread. And I feel like that would go to Love Haters by Catherine Center. Or I guess it's called The Love Haters by Catherine Center. I read this book also as an e-arc in the beginning of the year. This book was coming out I think in May. And I don't know why, but Catherine Center's book is always like my favorite book. There's nothing that is wrong with what she writes, and I feel like the characters in her book always has very interesting job, and the book is always in a very interesting setting. This one is about Katie, who is a video producer. Her company always produce kind of like, is it documentary or what is it called? I forgot. It's not really documentary. It's kind of like one of those commercial that is heartfelt and has that documentary feel. I don't know how to explain it, but anyways, she works in the video industry, and the love interest is Hutch, who is a Coast Guard rescue swimmer in the Key West. The Coast Guard is hiring Kathy's company to create kind of like a commercial for the Coast Guard, and Kathy was the one who got sent to Key West to film them. There's just a couple complicated things that we learn throughout the book about Katie and also about Hutch and Hutch's relationship with his brother, who is technically Katie's, I guess, manager or boss. And it just has very interesting kind of also plot twist toward the end of the book, which I feel like most Catherine Center's book has that. It's not really a, what is it called, third act conflict. It's just a very kind of like out of the blue twist that she threw in the book towards the end, but it just adds the fun to the book, I guess. If you have read Catherine Center's book, you probably kind of know what I'm talking about. I don't want to say it because it's gonna spoil the book. Those are the questions for the end of the year book tag. I hope you get some inspiration of some of the books that I have enjoyed and maybe not enjoyed so much in 2025. I'm excited for 2026 because I know there's gonna be way more books in my future, and hope to maybe see you with the same book tag video next year, and I will see you next time. Bye!